The words sliced through the quiet of the afternoon like a sharp blade, and the park fell into an uneasy silence. Laughter was replaced with stillness as children paused their swings and a flock of pigeons took flight. Mark Daniels stood a few feet away, fists clenched tightly. His daughter Lily's bicycle lay abandoned on the grass nearby, pink streamers on the handlebars gently fluttering in the breeze. Just moments before, he had been filled with pride, laughing and cheering her on as she pedaled along the path, showing newfound bravery since her mother had passed. But then his ears caught the sound, a woman's frightened voice, calling for help near the parking lot. Now, he was faced with two imposing men, both gripping the arms of a frightened young woman who couldn't have been more than 25. Her hair was disheveled, fear reflected in her wide eyes as she repeated, "Please, I just want to go." One man sneered dismissively. "This isn't your business, old man." Mark stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "Let her go, now." They laughed, a harsh, thoughtless sound that betrayed their sense of entitlement. But Mark didn't back down. His tone was quiet, yet heavy, making the world seem still around him. "Last warning," he said, calm and steady. Something in his gaze held them in place. There was a profound depth there, not rage, but an unsettling coolness, a resilience forged from experiences they couldn't begin to fathom. "Fine," one of them spat, shoving the woman aside. "She's all yours, hero." As they turned to walk away, still jeering, Mark's voice sliced through again. "Apologize." They halted, surprised. "What?" "Apologize to her," he insisted. "And pick up her bag." His voice remained level. He didn't budge. Yet both men paled. One reluctantly reached down to retrieve the bag tossed carelessly on the ground, handing it to the young woman. The other muttered a half-hearted apology. Mark waited patiently until they were out of sight before kneeling beside her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No, thank you. I didn't think anyone would stop." He offered a reassuring smile. "You're safe now." Lily dashed over, clutching her father's arm. "Daddy, are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetie," he replied softly, tousling her hair. "We just helped someone who needed a hand." The woman wiped her tears and murmured, "You didn't have to do that. They could have hurt you." Mark stood, his face showing nothing. "I've dealt with worse than bullies." He guided her to a nearby bench. She introduced herself as Emma. New in town, she said she worked at the small diner by the highway. The men had followed her home from her shift, demanding money she didn't owe. She tried to escape, but they caught her near the park. Mark listened intently. There was something in her voice, fragile yet filled with quiet resilience. When she finished, he said, "You should go to the police." "I can't," she whispered. "They'll find me again." Mark studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Let's get you somewhere safe." His home was a modest place on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just a warm environment with the scent of old coffee and Lily's crayons scattered around. Emma sank onto the couch, still visibly shaken. Lily offered her a cup of cocoa with a shy smile. "Daddy makes the best." Emma managed a weak smile. "Thank you, sweetheart." Mark observed them from the kitchen doorway. It had been a long time since he'd witnessed that kind of trust in someone's eyes. His late wife, Sarah, used to say he had a weakness for helping people. Maybe she was right. But he couldn't just stand by and watch someone get hurt, not after everything he'd been through. Once Lily was tucked into bed, Emma spoke softly, "You weren't scared of them." "Why?" Mark leaned back in his chair. "Because fear doesn't stop bad people. It just empowers them." Her eyes searched his. "You sound like someone who's been through a lot." He hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I was in the Special Forces. Spent years overseas. When I returned, I promised myself I'd never use what I learned to hurt anyone again. But sometimes, standing up for someone is the only way to maintain your humanity." They sat in silence for a while before Emma quietly said, "Thank you for seeing me." Mark looked at her, uncertain of how to respond. There was something in her gaze, not just gratitude, but a deep-seated sadness, like an unhealed wound. The next morning, he drove her to the diner. She insisted she was ready to face things on her own. But as she stepped out of the car, 2 police cruisers pulled up. The same men from the park were now in handcuffs. One of the officers approached Mark. "Sir, are you the one who intervened yesterday?" Mark nodded. "We reviewed the security footage from the diner. Because of what you did, we were able to catch them. It turns out they've been extorting employees for weeks." Emma faced him, her tears catching the light. "You really saved me." Mark offered a small smile. "You saved yourself. I just reminded them they don't own everything." The officers led the men away. As the morning sun illuminated Mark's face, Emma caught a glimpse of the burdens he carried, the exhaustion of someone who had faced too many struggles, both out in the open and hidden beneath the surface. She took his hand gently. "You promised you wouldn't use what you've learned to hurt anyone again. But yesterday, you used it to protect. Maybe that's your true purpose." He met her gaze, then glanced over at Lily, who was waiting in the car, beaming through the window. "Maybe you're right." As they drove away, the breeze carried Lily's laughter, and for the first time in a long while, Mark felt a sense of peace, not because he had fought, but because he chose kindness in a world that often overlooks it. Behind them, Emma watched the car grow distant, murmuring to herself, "He's more than a hero. He's a reminder that goodness still exists." The park would move on, and the confrontation would fade into memory. But for those who witnessed it, the 2 bullies, the frightened woman, the little girl, and the single dad who simply said, "Let her go," now, life would never feel quite the same again.